I had coffee last week with an old friend who just turned 61. He had his Social Security statement spread out on the table, rubbing his knuckles. The slow, absent-minded way you do when your joints have been complaining for years and you've stopped noticing. He looked at me and said, "The government's telling me to wait until 70 to get an extra $800 a month. But at 70, I'm not sure I'll be able to step up into an RV anymore." He's a carpenter, 40 years on scaffolding. His knees have more mileage than most pickup trucks, and the break-even calculator he'd been staring at didn't know any of that. That calculator gave him a clean number, a crossover age where waiting pays off. It assumed he'd be reasonably healthy, reasonably mobile, and reasonably eager to spend money at 72 the same way he would at 62. That's a spreadsheet wearing a costume. Today I want to walk you through two mathematical traps most people don't see, and two hidden penalties that don't show up in any free online calculator. Not to scare you, but because if you're going to make this call, you deserve the full picture. If you're new here, I'm Brody, 65 years old, sharing what I learned the hard way managing my own retirement for 35 years. Subscribe if that's useful. Let's get into it. If you were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67. Claim at 62 and you don't get a small discount. You take a permanent 30% cut, locked in for life, doesn't reset. Run the actual math. If your full benefit at 67 would be $2,000 a month, claiming at 62 gives you $1,400. That's $600 less every month for the rest of your life. But here's the part most people miss. Social Security applies its annual cost of living adjustment as a percentage of your base benefit. If COLA runs 3% this year, it adds $60 to a $2,000 base, but only $42 to a $1,400 base. It compounds. By the time you're 80, the gap isn't $600 a month anymore. It's much wider. I'll be honest. 10 years ago, I thought the same thing many of you are probably thinking. Take it early, invest the difference, beat the system. It sounded sharp. Then I watched it play out for real people, and I had to admit, I was calculating the wrong thing entirely. Take Mark. Claimed at 62, put the $1,400 a month straight into index funds. His logic was sound on paper. What his spreadsheet didn't account for was sequence of returns risk. He retired into a down market. The market dropped 15% at 63, exactly when he was pulling money out instead of adding to it. Then his medical costs started climbing. A new prescription, an extra specialist. Healthcare inflation has run higher than general inflation for years. His Invest the Difference plan was built on assumptions the real world quietly violated, one by one. And through all of it, his Social Security stayed stuck at $1,400. What you're really trading when you claim early to invest is a government-backed, inflation-adjusted, longevity-insured income stream for market exposure at the exact moment you have the least capacity to absorb a bad year. You're trading a floor for a bet. Here's the trap that breaks my heart, because nobody talks about it. If you're married, the decision you make at 62 doesn't just affect your check. It follows your spouse for the rest of their life. Let me tell you about John and Sarah. John spent 35 years in logistics. Good salary, disciplined saver, the higher earner by a wide margin. At 62, he made what felt like a reasonable decision. He'd been reading nervous headlines about Social Security's funding. He figured, better to lock in what's guaranteed now than gamble on the system in 10 years. So he filed, took the 30% cut, $1,540 a month instead of $2,200. John passed at 75. Sarah was 72. She had her own small benefit, about $800 from her own work record. As his surviving spouse, she could step up to his benefit instead if it was larger. That's how survivor benefits work. The widow keeps the higher of the two checks. Except John's check wasn't $2,200. It was $1,540. That's the number Sarah inherited. That's what she lives on now until the end of her life. She didn't make that decision. John made it 13 years earlier, worried about a headline. This is the conversation that almost never comes up in the break-even calculator. For the lower-earning spouse, statistically still more often the wife, the survivor benefit can be the single largest financial variable in the last decade of her life. If you're the higher earner, your claiming age isn't your decision. It's a decision you're making for two people across two different lifetimes. Now let me show you something that works in your favor, if you know it's there. Under the Secure Act 2.0, required minimum distributions don't kick in until 73. So if you stop working at 62 or 63, there's a window. You're not earning a salary. You haven't started Social Security. You haven't hit RMD age yet. Your taxable income during that window may be the lowest it'll ever be again. Planners call it the golden window. The name fits. This is when Roth conversions become genuinely powerful. If you have $400,000 in a traditional IRA and you convert $40,000 a year over 10 years while you're in the 12% bracket, you pay roughly $4,800 a year in federal tax. After that, the money grows tax-free forever, and you've shrunk the balance that will eventually trigger RMDs. But the moment you file for Social Security at 62, that income gets added back into the equation. Your conversion headroom shrinks. The window doesn't close, it gets significantly narrower. More of your retirement assets stay locked in the tax-deferred bucket, exactly where they cause the most damage later. John's decision at 62 wasn't just about Sarah's survivor benefit. It also meant they paid more tax on their IRA withdrawals throughout their 60s and 70s than they needed to. Not because they were reckless, because nobody told them the years between work and benefits were an asset they could either use or accidentally give away. Once Social Security opens, the window starts closing. And once it's gone, it's gone. A year after John passed, Sarah sat down with her tax preparer. He walked her through the return, then she asked him to repeat the number. She sat quiet for a moment and said, "But I'm making less money than when John was alive." She was right. And it's not a glitch. It's the system working exactly as designed. When Sarah and John filed jointly, their tax brackets were wide. The income threshold that determines how much of Social Security gets taxed was set at $44,000 of what the IRS calls provisional income. That's your adjusted gross income, plus tax-exempt interest, plus half your Social Security. Below $32,000, none of their Social Security was taxed. Above $44,000, up to 85% of it became taxable. Now, Sarah files as single. The threshold drops from $44,000 to $34,000. She lost roughly $10,000 of breathing room overnight. Her income didn't change dramatically. Her filing status did. And that's enough to push more of her Social Security into taxable territory. She's earning less. She's paying more. That's the widow's penalty. And here's what makes it worse. Those provisional income thresholds, $25,000 and $34,000 for single, $32,000 and $44,000 for joint, were set in 1983. They have never been adjusted for inflation. Not once in over 40 years. In 1983, those thresholds caught a small slice of retirees. Today, roughly half of Social Security recipients pay tax on their benefits. Congress hasn't touched the numbers. Inflation does the work automatically. It's a stealth tax increase that nobody voted for. Here's where it connects back to claiming early. If you file at 62 and you're also drawing from a traditional IRA, you're stacking income sources. Every dollar you pull from that IRA counts toward provisional income. For every additional dollar of IRA withdrawal that pushes you past the threshold, up to 85 cents of Social Security becomes newly taxable on top of it. $1 in can create $1.85 of taxable income. That's the tax torpedo. Invisible until it isn't. Put the full picture together. A 30% permanent reduction at 62. A survivor benefit locked at that reduced level for your spouse. A widow's penalty that shrinks her tax headroom the moment you're gone. And a provisional income formula untouched since Reagan was in office, pulling more of her benefit into the taxable column every year. None of that shows up in the free calculator. All of it is real. Now, I have to be honest about something. I'm not telling you to white-knuckle it until 70 like every suit on financial TV says. The math is real, but you are not a calculation. My spreadsheet doesn't know how your knees feel in the morning. It doesn't know your father had his first cardiac event at 67. It doesn't know that your job has been quietly hollowing you out for years, and the version of you who shows up on Monday is a diminished version of who you used to be. The math should serve your life. Your life should not serve the math. Researchers describe retirement in 3 phases. The go-go years, early 60s to early 70s, when you're mobile and actually want to spend money. The slow-go years, mid to late 70s, when travel gets harder. And the no-go years, 80 and beyond, when discretionary spending contracts, whether you want it to or not. Notice where the go-go years are. They overlap almost exactly with the years you're being told to wait. $1,400 a month at 62 might fund national park trips with your spouse, or 4 flights a year to see grandkids. That has a return on life that $2,000 a month at 70 from a chair you don't get out of much simply cannot match. The financial argument for waiting assumes you'll be there, healthy and spending, to collect the larger check. If that assumption doesn't hold for your situation, the whole optimization flips. So stop running the break-even calculator. Start running the go-go calculator. When does your window realistically open and close, given your health, your job, your energy? And what would you actually do with the money if you had it then? If your go-go window is wide and you can afford to wait, delay. Use the golden window for Roth conversions. Protect your spouse's survivor benefit. Let COLA compounding work for you. If your go-go window is narrow, your health is uncertain, or your job is genuinely damaging you, claiming at 62 may be the right financial call, when financial includes quality of life, not just check size. Neither answer is lazy. They're answers to different questions, and the right question is the one that accounts for your actual life, not a hypothetical one. If this helped you see the picture more clearly, hit subscribe. That's the whole point of this channel. And tell me in the comments, what matters more to you right now? A bigger check at 70 or healthy years to spend it starting at 62? I read every one. Take care of yourselves. If this helped you see things differently, share it with a friend or someone you love. They'll thank you later. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.